Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. This is Shaila Akhtar, Assistant Professor English. Today I'm here with an online class for the students of MA final year, and the topic of our today's class is Paysage Moralise, a poem by Wystan, Hugh, Auden from Modern Poetry. This is our poet, Wystan Hugh Auden. During our previous two classes, we already have got introduced to this poet and we learned many things about his writing style and discussed another poem. So we are going to start our poem, which we are going to discuss today. Paysage Moralise, the title of our today's poem. Paysage means landscape, so the title becomes Landscape Moralized. Here there are various geographical features as mountains, villages, and they are used as symbols to convey the poet's view of the human condition. Here we have the picture of rotten harvests, mountains, water, islands, and cities, and they are all used as symbols. The harvests are rotting because of the human desire for escape or of food. And here mountain symbolizes effort, the male principle. Water symbolizes faith and belief and also creation and regeneration. Islands symbolizes isolation and escape. Island is contrasted with the valleys, that means the real world. Cities symbolizes civilization and human society, and of all that has been built by the effort of man. And sorrow here is a symbol of the human predicament. So here we praise the founders of the human civilization because of their achievement, but our sorrow is caused by the fact that we have refused to follow the footsteps of the founders. So we seek escape through various romantic notions. Now let's start reading the poem and try to know what the poet wants to say. So, Paysage Moralise is Auden's second published sestina. So, sestina is a poem containing each stanza of 6 lines. The poem first appeared in the Criterion on July 1933. Auden derived the technique from Rilke, and Auden used landscape or various geographical features to present emotional and spiritual states in a concrete form, and in this way he is able to concretize his comments on human situation. This poem was later included in the collected shorter poems in 1950. Now, the theme of the poem. This poem presents picture of the Sikh society The whole generations crossed their various mountain frontiers seeking help, and allegorically, the poem presents a contrast between the healthy good and unhealthy bad. Here, religion and romantic love are the two types of escape from the sick society. Both these notions have all been misguiding the people and slowly been leading them to a state of passiveness and indolence. Through this poem, Auden pricked the balloon of romantic visionaries. There is a message at the end of the poem that civilization should be rebuilt so that the present society becomes healthy. Here, Auden pointed out that escape from sickness does not ensure health. Many simply turn away from it, deny it its reality. Mountains represent the unreality of self-deceptions and a retreat from the valleys where life must be lived, even if corrupt. Many gangs on the mountain have gone sick, decadent. Bravery lies in resisting the temptation to escape. Here is the first stanza of our poem. The poem says, hearing of harvests rotting in the valleys, seeing at end of street the barren mountains, round corners coming suddenly on water, knowing them shipwrecked who were launched for islands. We honor founders of these starving cities, whose honor is the image of our sorrow. So, here the poet praises the founders of human civilization. It was expected to ensure the prosperity and security of this human civilization by following the footprints of the founders of our cities. The modern people, who are the followers of religion and the romantic notion of love, have gone astray. The poet tells that those who had earlier undertaken this journey to the islands were shipwrecked. Those who leave the valleys and cross the mountains and go to the islands are escapists, and they will leave the human civilization starving, morose, and dejected. Now the second stanza, which cannot see its likeness in their sorrow, that brought them desperate to the brink of valleys, dreaming of evening walks through learned cities, they reined their violent horses on the mountains. Those fields, like ships to castaways on islands, visions of green to them who craved for water. Through the lines of the second stanza, the poet wants to say that the modern world is just the opposite of what the founders thought and did. The founders never expected us to leave the civilization founded by them and escape to the islands of romantic notions. Now the people are dreaming of evening walks through land cities and are riding high on the horses, and they're riding high on the horses of their aspirations and ambitions. Here is the third stanza. They built by rivers, and at night the water running past windows comforted their sorrow. Each in his little bed conceived of islands, where every day was dancing in the valleys, and all the green trees blossomed on the mountains, where love was innocent, being far from cities. Here, the poet says that the founders built cities by rivers for necessity, because rivers can provide them happiness and comfort. But now everybody sees romantic dreams about islands and wishes to escape to them. So they believe love to be innocent there, being far from cities. And they wish to escape to the islands in the hope to concretize their romantic views. Now, let's see what stanza 4 says. But town came back, and they were still in cities. No marvelous creature rose up from the water. There was still gold and silver in the mountains, but hunger was a more immediate sorrow. Although to moping villagers in valleys, some waving pilgrims were describing islands. So, in this stanza, the poet wants to tell us that throughout the night, the escapists visualizes various dreams of their escape, but in the morning, they return to their wakefulness. Mountains abound in material wealth and prosperity, but there is no way out of the realities of this world where people are starving. Religion also makes people weak, fearful, and superstitious. And in the name of heaven and hell, the poor, ignorant villagers have always been exploited by the villains or tyrants of the society. Here is the fifth stanza of the poem. The gods, they promised, visit us from islands, are stalking head up, lovely, through our cities. Now is the time to leave your rest valleys and sail with them across the lime green water. Sitting at their white sides, forget your sorrow, the shadow cast across your lives by mountains. So, in this stanza, the poet gives the idea that many people perform various religious ceremonies to please the gods in order to get heavenly boons and benedictions. But this is nothing but escapist tendency. So here Auden satirizes the villain of religion. Now the sixth stanza. So many, doubtful, perished in the mountains, climbing up cracks to get a view of islands. So many, fearful, took with them their sorrow, which stayed them when they reached unhappy cities. So many, careless, dived and drowned in water. So many, rest, would not leave their valleys. In this stanza, the poet describes different types of escapists. The poet says, many ambitious people died of exhaustion in the mountains, although they made all efforts to climb up crags to have a view of islands. Some returned dejected and frustrated, some died in water, but the people who did not leave their valleys remained passive. Now, the final stanza with hope of the poet. It is our sorrow. Shall it melt? Then water would gush, flush, green these mountains and these valleys, and we rebuild our cities, not dream of islands. So, in this stanza, the poet feels modern age as ice age, and the poet wants to tell us that this modern ice age should be melted into water because modern culture is sick, and this modern ice age or modern culture lacks warmth of feeling and health of mind. So this sick culture, according to the poet, can be perished when the modern culture will be melted into water. That means the poet actually to accept wants us to accept the reality and tells us to bring some cultural change and to leave the tendency of escape. So, the beauty of the poem lies in developing the natural symbolism representing all these emotional states or situations. So, the very title of the poem indicates Auden's allegorizing the landscape. The poem is a picture of sick society I have mentioned earlier. The dwellers of this sick society try to escape from the reality as the reality shatters their imagination or romantic love. But their escape does not give them any relief. So they sink to a state of more and more agony and dismay. So here, religion and romantic love are the two types of escape for the Sikh society as presented by the poem, by the poet Auden. So the poet gives the account of the villains who always misguide people slowly and leads them to a state of indolence. And the poem is a satire on Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, and it is an allegory of the human condition. So, natural symbolism imports to the lyric both concreteness and richness of texture. So, we can add some more things that escapism is the cause of the sorrow of the dwellers, and the result is that of decay. So the real source of our sorrow lies within, and it is spiritual. So healing can come only from within and not from without. So my dear students, here ends our today's class, and I will be here again with another class. Till then, stay home, stay safe, and thank you for having patience.